don't know what I would have been if I would have went to Detroit. I know I'd have had maybe 2 or 3 rings.
Two. Definitely had.
You know what I'm saying? But I don't know how everything else would have played out after that throughout my career.
All right. In an Instagram live chat with Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony says that if he had been drafted 2nd overall by the Pistons back in 2003 instead of Darko Milicic, he would have had maybe 2 or 3 rings. As it stands, despite being a 10-time All-Star, Carmelo has 0 rings and 1 Western Conference Finals appearance. Stephen A., so tell me this. If he had been drafted by Detroit, would he have multiple chips?
He'd have at least 1. I can promise you that. Possibly 2. Let's remember something here. When Joe Dumars, an otherwise exceptional executive that I still believe should have an executive's position in the NBA today, the most glaring mistake he ever made was drafting Darko Milicic. But let's understand why he did that. As egregious as some may think that is, he had Tayshaun Prince with Rasheed and Ben Wallace, with Rip Hamilton and Chauncey Billups, with the Lindsey Hunters of the world coming off the bench. And Carmelo Anthony's rookie year, the Detroit Pistons won the title. That's when they beat the Lakers. The next year, they went to the NBA Finals and lost in 7 games to the San Antonio Spurs. Should have won it in 5 or 6, but Rasheed Wallace forgot to guard Robert Horry in the left corner, who drilled the 3, and obviously that enabled San Antonio to escape from Detroit with a victory and ultimately win that series in 7 games. Those 2 Piston teams, Melo would have been coming off the bench. And I'm telling you right now, there ain't no way in hell they wouldn't have won. I believe they would have won titles both years. They had to beat the Lakers anyway, and they had to beat San Antonio. And Melo would have been coming off the bench because the Pistons were the #1 defense the year they won the title, and they were #2 in defense when they lost the title the following year to San Antonio in 7 games. The only thing that I would say about Melo is this. Melo is going to be a Hall of Famer. You know, the Basketball Hall of Fame is not just pro, it's your collegiate career and all of that other stuff. We know he was a champion at Syracuse. Melo is a big-time scorer, averaged 21 a game as a rookie. A fabulous offensive player. But the one thing that you can hold against Melo is what I've said religiously. It was never supposed to be Bosh. It was supposed to be D-Wade, Melo, and LeBron. D-Wade, LeBron, and Bosh were willing to sign contracts in 2007 that allowed them to be free agents in 2010. Melo wanted the whole deal. He wasn't trying to give away no money, so he took the money from Denver, had to delay his departure from Denver until a year later. Then when he got to New York, he should have left earlier than he ultimately did, but wanted to stay in New York playing for the billionaire that was Dolan inside the corridors of Madison Square Garden instead of landing himself with a better team. So on 2 occasions, he cost himself an opportunity to be with a better team, better players, and have more help because he wanted the money. That's the only thing that you can knock Melo about. But I promise you, if he were in Detroit, he'd have 2 rings.
Well, I disagree with the Detroit point, but I will say this. Carmelo Anthony, in this universe, he didn't win any championships. In a lot of others, like, you could play it out again, and with some differences here and there in the details, he may have won multiple championships depending on where he would have gone. If he'd have gone to San Antonio, for example, obviously if he's with the Heat with LeBron and Wade, he would have won championships. And there's some teams where they really needed a primary scoring option like that back in the ISO ball era where Melo would have been the guy and they could have won championships. It's not that he couldn't have been a championship player, but Detroit is a specific play. Look, the Darko draft was an outrage. It's like, even at the time, you know, in retrospect, we know that, but at the time, like, are you kidding? Carmelo Anthony? There were some people asking whether after Syracuse won, is Carmelo the #1 overall pick? I disagreed with them, but it's not like they didn't exist. Carmelo was a great, great player. The Detroit team, though, you're forgetting. It's not that they couldn't have beaten the Lakers in the finals with Carmelo on that team. But what really made that 04 team special was that they were, in my opinion, well, I'll tell you this, they were the greatest defensive team I've ever seen in any sport in my lifetime. St. Louis Cardinals with Ozzie Smith and Keith Hernandez had some great teams. Obviously, the Baltimore Ravens and the Chicago Bears had some great defensive teams, and they won championships, all the places I just mentioned. But the Detroit 04 teams, my dad used to tell me stories, Stephen A., of the Knicks used to hold teams under 90. The Detroit Pistons used to routinely hold teams under 70, the 04 Pistons. It was absurd, and the reason for that, there was no weak links. Who was the weakest link on defense? Rip Hamilton, the starting five? That was their calling card. So forget about the Lakers series. Carmelo, they win anyway. The Indiana Pacers series, that was the best defensive series I'd ever seen. 7-game series. I don't know that if you add a defensive weak link there, even if you get more on offense, you even get past the Pacers. Maybe the next year when they came close, adding Carmelo helps them win maybe one, but multiple rings as though you replay 04 and they do it with Carmelo instead? I don't know about that.
Max, I vehemently disagree with you. I think they got multiple championships.
Thank you.
And I'll say this. So much of being in the league has to deal with the condition in which your first team is that you get drafted to, right? I'll give you a small example. So I came out of college running pick and roll every possession. Every possession. My first year with the Bulls, we ran the triangle. Like, I had no idea what that offense even was. And by the way, our leadership was drastically different. So when Melo goes to Denver, he's automatically the alpha. People are doing what Melo wants, which I think really kind of shaped up the ego of Melo as that transcended his ultimate career, right? But if Melo comes in to the Detroit Pistons and he is a guy like Chauncey Billups, big shot Chauncey Billups that says, come here, Melo, I got you. I'm going to show you how to work. I'm going to show you how to be a pro every single day. Yeah, you might be coming off the bench, but yeah, you can start if you got better defensively. Every single day in practice. Go at Tayshaun, go at all these different guys. I think the trajectory of Melo's career would have been drastically different. Yes, I think he would have been an elite scorer, but I think we might have seen Melo turn into a completely different player earlier in his career that might have changed which team he might not have even left Detroit for his entire career. You never know that.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.